Greetings and salutations. This is the Adjutant. Over the years, I've had thousands of conversations with veterans. Some were active duty soldiers preparing to retire. Some had already been retired for years. Others had served only enlistment before returning to civilian life. But regardless of their branch, rank, or years of service, I've heard one sentence more times than I can count. I wish someone had told me that sooner. Sometimes they're talking about healthcare. Sometimes they're talking about taxes. Sometimes it was education. Sometimes it was travel. And sometimes it was benefits worth tens of thousands of dollars that they had unknowingly left on the table. What always struck me wasn't that these benefits existed. What struck me was that these men and women had earned them through years of sacrifice, deployments, missed birthdays, long separations from family, sleepless nights, and dangerous assignments. Yet after taking off the uniform, nobody have ever connected all the dots for them. As many of you know, I served more than 26 years in the United States Army. After that, I became an attorney. I've spent more than 2 decades as a VA adjudicator, as well as handling homeless veterans claims, doing a lot of outreach to the public in the area where I live, helping veterans navigate one of the most complex benefit systems in the federal government. During that time, I've seen an unfortunate pattern repeat itself over and over again. Veterans are exceptionally good at serving others. They're often terrible at making sure they receive everything they earn. Maybe it's because military culture teaches us to press on without complaining. Maybe it's because we become so focused on the mission that we rarely stop to ask what we're entitled to after the mission is complete. Whatever the reason, too many veterans leave retirement believing the chapter has closed. The truth is, retirement isn't the end of our military benefits. For many veterans, it's actually where some of the best benefits begin. Today, I want to help change that. Whether you're preparing to retire next month, you've already been retired for 20 years, or you served one enlistment and never made the military career. I want you to watch this video all the way to the end because I can almost guarantee there's at least one benefit on this list you either didn't know existed or didn't realize applied to you. And if it helps even one veteran avoid leaving thousands of dollars on the table, then making this video will have been worth every minute. So let's begin with one of the most valuable benefits available: healthcare. You know, folks, it's funny. When people think about retirement, they often worry about the one thing more than almost anything else. And what is that? What am I going to do about health insurance? For a civilian, that's often a legitimate concern. Healthcare costs can become one of the largest expenses during retirement, but military retirees have access to something many veterans would gladly trade places for: TRICARE. Now, I'm not suggesting it's perfect. Like any healthcare system, there are frustrations from time to time. But compared to what many retirees in the private sector pay each year, TRICARE remains one of the most valuable retirement benefits available. Unfortunately, many retirees don't fully understand all the options available to them. Some don't realize how prescription coverage works. Others aren't aware of the advantages of using military pharmacies or home delivery service. Still others mistakenly assume they must use civilian pharmacies for everything, paying more than necessary. I've met retirees who were spending hundreds of extra dollars each year simply because they did not understand how to maximize the benefit they had already earned. Think about that for a moment. Imagine paying for something over and over again simply because nobody ever explained your options. That's exactly what happens. The lesson here is simple. Don't just have benefits. Understand your benefits. Knowledge often saves just as much money as the benefit itself. Now, let's move from healthcare to something that surprises a lot of veterans. That's travel. If you've never heard of space available travel, often called Space A, well, you're not alone. Many veterans retire without realizing that military aircraft sometimes have available seats for eligible passengers. Now, let me be clear. This isn't guaranteed airline ticket. You have to understand the rules, eligibility, priorities, and flexibility that come with space age travel. But for retirees who have flexible schedules, it can become an incredible opportunity. I've talked with retirees who have flown around the country and in some cases overseas for a fraction of what a commercial airfare would have cost. Let's think about that. You spent years supporting military operations, years living according to military schedules, years sacrificing holidays, and now one of the rewards available to many retirees is the opportunity to travel using military transportation when space allows. Yet countless retirees never even look into it. Not because they don't qualify, because nobody ever mentioned it. That's one of the themes you'll hear throughout today's discussion. Most veterans don't miss benefits because they're unavailable. They miss them because they simply don't know where to look. And that's exactly why we're having this conversation today. One of the greatest investments you can make after retirement isn't buying another vehicle. It isn't purchasing another gadget. It's investing a little time learning the benefits you already earned, because knowledge compounds just like money. The more you learn, the more value you receive over the rest of your life. And we're only getting started. Now, I'm going to show you several benefits that many veterans qualify for without ever realizing it, including benefits that can save you money every single year for the rest of your life. One of the things I've learned over the years is that the military teaches us how to accomplish incredible, difficult missions. What it doesn't always teach us is how to transition into the next chapter of life. For decades, your schedule was planned, your pay was predictable, your benefits were largely handled for you. Then one day you're standing in a parking lot after retirement ceremony carrying a shadow box in your DD-214, and everyone congratulates you on beginning your new life. But very few people sit you down and say, "Now let me show you everything you earned." That's the conversation we're having today. Now, let's talk about something that many veterans don't discover until someone accidentally tells them years later. The America the Beautiful Lifetime Pass. Now, if you qualify as a disabled veteran, this pass can provide free access to national parks and many federal recreation sites. Now, think about that for a moment, okay? Think about that. Some of the most beautiful places in our country, places that people travel thousands of miles to visit, places that remind you just how incredible God's creation really is, may already be available to you because of your service. I've always believed that retirement shouldn't simply be about slowing down. It should be about finally having time to enjoy the life you spent decades building. Now, too many veterans spend retirement inside the same four walls because they never realize opportunities like this exist. Sometimes the greatest reward isn't another paycheck. Sometimes it's finally having the freedom to explore. Now, let's talk about something that varies depending on where you live, but it can be incredibly valuable at the same time, and that's state veterans benefit. Here's something I encourage every veteran watching this video to do. Visit your State Department of Veterans Affairs website, not the federal VA website, though you should look at that as well, your state. You might ask yourself, why? We got the national. Well, I'll tell you, because every state offers different benefits. Some states provide significant property exemptions. For example, in Michigan, your house could be $1 trillion. You wouldn't have to pay property taxes. Others reduce vehicle registration fees. Some offer free hunting and fishing licenses. Now, many provide education assistance for veterans or their dependents. Some even offer tuition assistance that many families never discover until after they've already paid for college. Now, I've met veterans who unknowingly paid property taxes for years when they qualified for substantial reductions. Now, think about that. If you are a 100% service-connected disabled veteran in the state of Michigan, for example, and your home is valued in excess of $1 million or $2 or whatever it's valued at, you don't have to pay whatever the assessed values are. Now, imagine you paying that every year. with knowing that you didn't have to, later knowing you wouldn't have to. That certainly would not be a wonderful experience to learn, though you'll be happy that moving forward you wouldn't have to pay it. I've also met veterans who paid thousands for college expenses that could have been reduced had they simply known where to look. Again, not because they weren't eligible, because nobody ever explained it. I want you to notice something. None of these benefits were discussed so far require you to become wealthier first. They simply require awareness. That's an important lesson. Sometimes improving your financial life isn't about earning more money. Sometimes it's about keeping more of the money you already have. Now, let's move on to another benefit that's often misunderstood, the commissary and exchange. I've heard people say, I never shop there anymore. That's certainly your choice. But before you dismiss it, ask yourself a question. Have you actually compared prices recently? For many retirees, regular purchases made at the commissary and exchange can produce meaningful savings over the course of a year. Not on every single item, but consistently enough that those savings begin to compound. You know, I talk a lot on this channel about wealth building. One of the biggest misconceptions about wealth is that it's only about making more money. That's only half the equation. The other half is spending less than you otherwise would have had. Save $20 here, save $30 here, $100 every few weeks. Over 10, 20, or 30 years, that becomes some real money. Small decisions, repeated consistently, create extraordinary outcomes. That's true with investing. It's true with wealth. It's true with relationships. And it's true with retirement. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest misconceptions I hear regarding the VA home loan. Many veterans believe they only get one opportunity to use it. That simply isn't true. Depending on your circumstances, eligibility, and restoration entitlement, many veterans can use a VA home loan benefit again. I've spoken with veterans who assume that because they bought a home years ago, the benefit had disappeared forever. They were pleasantly surprised to discover they still had options. Think about that and what that means. One misunderstanding can delay a family's dream of home ownership. That's why education matters. Not just education in college, education about your own benefits, because information changes decisions, and decisions change lives. Okay, now let's shift to education itself. One of the greatest gifts the military gave me wasn't just leadership training, it was opportunity. Education has the power to completely redirect the course of your life. Many veterans know about the GI Bill. Fewer understand all the different education opportunities that still exist depending on their circumstances. Now, some are surprised to learn about state education benefits, which is why you should check your state sites. Others discover opportunities for spouses or children. Some veterans never realize that additional certifications or professional training may qualify for education funding. Never assume you've exhausted every educational opportunity simply because you've already earned one degree. Learning shouldn't stop when the uniform comes off. In many ways, that's when it truly begins. I often tell people that retirement isn't the finish line, it's graduation. You completed one assignment, now you're beginning another. The question becomes, who do you want to become during the next 20 or 30 years? That's a much more important question than simply asking how much money you save. Okay? Now, let's talk about something people don't enjoy discussing, but every responsible adult needs to consider. And that's planning for the future. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, you want to plan for burial expenses, burial benefits, life insurance, final arrangements. I know none of us enjoy these conversations, but one of the greatest acts of love we can show our families is preparing before they need us to. Many veterans qualify for burial benefits they never investigate until a loved one is standing in one of the most difficult moments of their life. Don't leave those decisions for someone else. Learn about them now. Make a plan now. Give your family clarity instead of confusion. That's one of the greatest gifts you'll ever leave behind. You know, as I've gotten older, I've come to realize something, and that is wealth isn't measured only by what you accumulate. It's measured by the problems you prevent, the stress you remove, the burdens you lift from the people you love. That's legacy. And speaking of legacy, there's one final group of benefits that almost every veteran overlooks because they're scattered across dozens of companies, organizations, and programs. They're not life-changing individually, but together they can quietly save you thousands of dollars over the course of retirement. And perhaps more importantly, they serve as a reminder that your service continues to be appreciated long after you hung up the uniform. Now, before we wrap up today, I want to talk about the one final category of benefits that often gets dismissed because each individual discount seems relatively small. That's veterans discounts. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. Are we really talking about 10% off a restaurant? Nope. I'm talking about changing the way you think. Many veterans unknowingly save thousands of dollars over the course of retirement because they make it a habit to simply ask one question. Do you offer a military or veteran discount? Sometimes the answer is no, but sometimes it's yes. Hotels, airfare, rental car, cell phone providers, home improvement stores, sporting goods, insurance companies, museums, entertainment, retail stores, technology companies, even some professional services. None of those discounts by themselves are likely to make you wealthy, but that's not the point. The point is this. If you spent years serving your country and a business chooses to recognize that service, there is absolutely nothing wrong with accepting it graciously. You've earned it. One of the greatest mindset shifts I had to make after leaving active duty was learning that receiving wasn't weakness. For most of our military careers, we're trained to give more effort, give more time, give more sacrifice, give more leadership, give more of yourself. Eventually, many veterans become so accustomed to giving that receiving almost feels uncomfortable. But there's an important distinction. Receiving what you earned isn't asking for charity. It's accepting compensation for service already rendered. That's a very different thing. I've watched veterans hesitate to apply for benefits because they felt someone else deserved them more. I've watched retirees delay filing paperwork because they didn't want to be a burden. I've watched men and women who served honorably convince themselves that somehow they hadn't earned enough. If that's you, I want to encourage you today. Stop thinking that way. If you legitimately qualify for a benefit established by law, use it. If you qualify for health care, use it. If you qualify for education, use it. If you qualify for travel benefits, use it. If you qualify for tax relief, claim it. If you qualify for VA compensation, apply for it. Those benefits weren't created by accident. They were created because a grateful nation recognized that military service often comes with sacrifices most Americans will never fully understand. Now, earlier in this video, I told you about the veterans I've met over the years who looked at me and said, "I wish someone had told me sooner." I can still picture many of those conversations. Sometimes a veteran would smile after learning about a benefit they never knew existed. Sometimes they laughed and shake their head. Sometimes they became very frustrated because they realized they had missed opportunity for years. And occasionally they simply sit quietly. Not because they were angry, but because they finally understood something they wished they had known much earlier. I never enjoyed seeing that look because so much of it could have been prevented through education. That's one of the reasons this channel exists. Not to create fear, not to chase headlines, not to convince you that everything is broken, but to help you make informed decisions, to help you avoid expensive mistakes, to help you build wealth, to help you understand your benefits, and ultimately to help you live the kind of retirement your years of service made possible. You know, when I first started planning my own retirement, I thought almost exclusively about the numbers. How much would I make in retirement? How much would the check be? What would my investments look like? What would my Social Security be? How much would I need every month? Those are important questions, but over time I realized they're incomplete. Retirement isn't just about replacing income, it's about replacing purpose. It's about protecting your health. It's about strengthening your relationships. It's about becoming a mentor. It's about having the freedom to spend time with your children, your grandchildren, your spouse, your friends, your community, and the people who matter most. The financial benefits we talked about today make those things easier. They're not the destination. They're the tools that help you enjoy the destination. That's why I encourage every veteran watching this video to become a student of their own benefits. Don't assume you know everything. I still learn new things every day. Policies change, programs change, state benefits change, new opportunities become available. Stay curious, stay informed, and don't be afraid to ask questions. One question today could save you thousands of dollars tomorrow. Now, before I close, I have a favor to ask. If you know another veteran who needs to hear this message, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with them. You may help them discover a benefit they never knew they had. And if one veteran avoids saying, "I wish someone had told me this sooner," then we've accomplished something worthwhile together. If this video has been helpful, I would also appreciate it if you would click the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. Here on The Adjutant, we talk about military retirement, VA benefits, military wealth, leadership, and life strategy so that the years you spent serving continue to work for you long after you've taken off the uniform. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. And so there you have it. I wish you all blessings and blessings, and I'll see you in the next one. Shalom.